Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever or whenever you may be. This is the overnight. I'm DM Foss, and with me so far is Baron SVG. How's it going, Baron?
Amazing. Couldn't be better.
Well, that's
Always
great
good
to
to be
hear.
on an overnight.
Yeah, every time I do the intro, I realize, oh God, I haven't updated the intros.
I noticed something new on that one. You got me holding a revolver with a scope on it. Isn't that with a jab at me having a rail on my Red Hawk?
Yeah,
Yeah. You tried to insult me like a year and a half ago and I didn't even notice.
yeah.
We've just been playing that. Okay. There's probably a few more in there I haven't noticed.
Oh,
Actually, that'd be a good thing. If you're watching this in replay, leave a comment. See how many jabs at me there are in that intro video.
well, right now there's four different versions of that intro, and each one is a little bit different. So let's see who was out there. I know it doesn't show up, but New York Outcast was out there earlier, and
Yeah, I saw him too.
there was someone else. I don't remember, but there's Bjorn and Faride. Not sure on the pronunciation if it's Faride or Faraday. Sergeant Joe Smith, G23, um, who's still in the hospital, but sounds like slowly getting better. And Guns Barbecue, Roy Munson, Gizzard Gary, Keith Gregory, Wesley Foster, M. Gabriel. I think that's everybody so far. So, Barbecue, Gary, if you guys want to jump in, there's links in the overnight. Um,
And I did DM barbecue a link.
there's in the description for this chat, there is a link for. Oh, that reminds me.
Bruce Banner.
Yeah,
Forgot to let him in.
there we go. Uh, there's a link for the overnight Gilded server, and it's a place to hang out, chit chat with other people, share memes, pictures, and at the bottom of the screen there's an email address on tacticalfoss@gmail.com and a link if you want to send in suggestions, comments, or pictures within reason. That's another way that you can do that. Um,
All pictures need to include a foot.
yeah. Yeah. Um, so, yeah, I was going to say something and then it just slipped my mind. What was I gonna
Those
say?
are all from me. Foss doesn't like the feet.
Well, it's bad framing. You don't need to see your feet
You,
unless
you
you're
got a
taking
point. I'm
specific
going to create a
pictures.
channel that is just for feet. No guns, just foot pictures.
Oh,
We could do a whole foot chat. Foot bracket.
yeah. I finally say, hey, why don't we do a bracket? And you're like, nah, I'm all bracketed out.
Dude, I wanted to jump in a wood chipper this week. I'm literally curled up with a blanket and I'm not doing good.
How you doing, G Webs?
Fair to Midland. Thanks for the link. Thanks, Ross.
No problem. Um, yeah. So tonight, uh, tonight's topic was gun collecting, but that was
Mhm.
just kind of, I couldn't think of anything, and that's the only one that was suggested. So we went with that. I am not really a gun collector.
Yet.
Um, there's, out of the few that I have, um, there's only two that are not, um, that I have that I would not consider I purchased them for specific reason. I've got a couple guns that are carry guns, a home defense, well, a couple that are home defense guns. A small rifle for small game, larger rifles for larger game. I don't hunt, but if I were to hunt, then I have rifles for that. The Super Blackhawk, the 44 Magnum, that was, I wanted a large, kind of ridiculous gun, and it's um,
Good
stainless,
range toy.
7.5-inch barrel, which unfortunately it's not big and ridiculous enough. So I want something bigger. I really want um, that 500 Smith & Wesson with the short barrel. That's what I really want.
You should get the 4570 from Bond Arms.
Yeah.
Just a barrel swap.
And there are other ones. If I were collecting, there are other ones. Have always wanted a Ruger P90. And the other one that I bought that would, I guess, kind of fit in the collecting was the 4006, the TSW Smith & Wesson, the third gen Smith, because it's that 90s look, and that's I like the way it looked. Outside of that, all the other ones that I have, are purpose driven.
Well, you could have just guns that have practical use and not even have all the bases covered, and somebody else is going to come along and go. Like you could have a lever action, a revolver, and a bolt action, and still have plans to buy other things to accomplish tasks or whatever.
Yeah.
Somebody could come along and go, "Hey, look, that person has a collection of guns." Because you kind of do, you know what I mean? Just because there's also a definition of like guns that are collectible or extra guns. Like some people are just going to see 3 guns as a collection.
Yeah, I do want. That's another one, is a lever action. I don't have a lever action, and that's kind of why I want one. Is they're cool, and I don't have one. I was looking at them, the last few days, and I was looking at Grab a Gun and I forget who makes it, but the 30-06 lever gun. I think. Well, I looked at a couple of things, but luckily they weren't in stock. Otherwise, I probably would have done their layaway. And G-Webs, I know you have like your Ring of Fire collection and the little 22s.
Yeah.
Do you
collectibles?
And I know you're kind of you've kind of moved on from buying guns, where you're concentrating more on 2A stuff. But do those the Ring of Fire? I know you're really into the history of them. Was that the same for the 22s, or was the 22s just you like that format, or what was
So it's interesting. So both of them were something I was interested in already, but then when I was doing YouTube and just doing stuff where you can make a couple of bucks making a video about stuff. So then that was even more um, interest in developing those collections because there was more than one reason to do it. So the Ring of Fire ones was something that was possible to collect. They're historic, like they existed in a certain section of time, so it's possible to have every single one of them, right? Like there's only so many of them. So that was interesting, and that collection. Once I got to a point where I figured out there are only this many of the 22 caliber versions of all these different companies' guns, and it's possible to literally obtain them all. Like that became a collection that was interesting just to attempt to complete, right? But then with uh, the small revolvers, that one I had already had a bunch just because I enjoyed them and I thought they were cool. But then I met Jerry I knew Sandy from NAA from going on a factory tour and just knowing him for years. And then I met Jerry, the guy who invented the ones from Freedom Arms, the guy who was working with Dick Casul making the things in the first place. And after I figured out I knew both of them, and then going on the tour and meeting Jerry Berber, the guy that owned the casting place that made them all, I started to figure out that not only do I have a bunch of these interesting guns, but I've met pretty much everybody that's still alive that had anything to do with them. So that became possible to not own every single one of them, but to at least own one specimen from each of the companies that was involved with it. So that was also like a collection that was started, but then also became evident that I could essentially have a very complete collection or, do something that covered all the different elements of it. So it was it took its own kind of the collection took on its own, I don't say life, but like, the development of the collection started to evolve based on I don't know, like the meeting of all these different people that were involved in it. So unlike the Ring of Fire guns, where most of the people were dead already, and they're just not good people. Like I wouldn't want to meet the people from the Ring of Fire. Those people happen to be bad people. Like the guns are interesting and the impact on society is beneficial, but the people themselves are not good people. Where the small revolvers, there's nothing wrong with those people. Those are all super nice people, and it was just an interesting place to, I don't know, in whatever years those were, I was actually able to meet so many of the people that was just another element to that one. So in other words, if it would have been like collecting 32 H&R revolvers, I don't think I would have ever been as interested in it because it wasn't possible, at least I don't think it's possible to meet everybody involved in the H&R revolver realm or something. Yeah. But in those little mini revolvers, it was just possible to kind of shake everybody's hand and meet everybody who's been involved. And except for the people from, well, I guess the guy from Standard would be, every time they come up with a new little one, I talk to him at SHOT Show. So technically I keep meeting and shaking hands with the people that invent these little revolvers. So except for that little Standard Switch 22 that they just made, I think I've still been able to meet everybody involved in those little ones. So that's just and plus I just think they're neat. Tiny little revolvers are super fun. I like Matchbox cars. Except
is the Switch, is that the one that folds up?
It looks like an NAA with a folding grip, but it's made all together like that. Yeah. So it's sort of a weird short barreled version of an NAA mini gun, but with an integrated grip. So it's sort of a one trick pony. It only has the folding grip as far as I can tell.
So are you close to having a complete collection, or are you still working on it?
The mini revolvers, I started selling them before. So there's a lot of mini revolvers. So there's each company. I did have a sample from each company for a minute there. The company from Florida, FIE? No, who was the company? Somebody from Florida kept making them, and I never did get one. And then this new Switch. And then there's technically like a third one, I think, and then a fourth one that I know existed out of California, but I was never able to obtain one. So I did pretty good at kind of keeping all of them. But the problem is NAAs. There's no way to have every NAA. There's just a lot of them, and they're boring. They're not that interesting. So I did have a pretty good selection of them. But then they're worth real money. Like a small NAA is like $200 plus, right? So something like a normal caliber people would want, like a 22 Magnum or a 22 long rifle, could easily be $300. And I just never had that kind of money. The other guns I collect are like $60 guns, and you don't really get small mini revolvers for that kind of money. So the belt buckle ones I sold, they were worth money, and some of the just more interesting of the ones that I had, 22 Magnums or 22 long rifles that weren't shot very much, I ended up selling off. And then maybe like the Blackjacks, I gave the Blackjacks to Jimmy. He was a co-host of the Daily Gun Show for a while. I couldn't really pay him, so I gave him a couple of those. So, some of them are gone from just paying bills and stuff. And I never was as ambitious to collect all of those. If everyone would have made a 22 short, I probably would have, but essentially NAA is the only one that ever made 22 shorts, and those are the ones I really like. So the collection of those, whenever, I don't know which video, but there's some video that has like the most I ever owned, and everything now is something, besides that. I kept all the 22 shorts, but I don't have all the 22 revolvers anymore.
Tim S is out there. And Fair writes said, I am new to the gun culture. Well, we are happy to have you.
It can be an expensive hobby if you don't keep an eye on it.
Yeah, and for me, when I bring up, most of them what I have has a use. That was the compromise I struck with my wife, who doesn't want anything to do with any of them. And a limit, me putting a limit on myself. I tend to be, once I start buying something, then I want, I'll collect a bunch of them. I've got the lunchbox collection. I've got Seattle Mariners autograph collection. That one's the biggest one I have. I think I have probably at least 350 autographs.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
I started, I've got a notebook that I have a card. I was starting to put together a baseball card for every year, the 40-man roster, anybody who is on the 40-man roster, which is kind of tough because guys will come up to the big leagues and then go down or get traded. But for the first, up through, I think, the 90s, I had probably 90% of the players covered. There's some that there weren't cards, so you couldn't. And then also I printed out a stat sheet for every player on the 40-man roster. So, if somebody were to ask me about the pitcher, Dick Pohl, here's his card, here's his stat sheet. But then my son was born, and then I couldn't spend the massive amount of time it takes to do all that.
Yeah.
So what we just learned is DMFOS is a 90s baseball encyclopedia.
Well, 80s was the sweet spot for me because that's
okay.
Growing up. But yeah, 70s through the 90s. And I don't remember most of it because I'm not into it currently. At the time, there was a lot I could tell you, but not, I've forgotten most of it since.
Either way, if I end up on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, you're my lifeline.
Wow. But so to bring it back to guns. So that's why, it would be, the couple ARs. So I had an AR for downstairs and an AR for upstairs, And then,
You need an AR for inside and one for outside.
well,
You can get two more.
There was. That's what the 300 blackout with a suppressor was. But that's I'm changing the format on that one. But I do have that urge, though, to get more and more. And, I'll go to the gun shop. When I was going to buy a lever action and came home with EAA 10 millimeter compact, because I'll go to the shop with, I want this exactly, I want this gun, and then go look at all the other guns and say, oh, well, I'll take that one instead. And then I didn't get the thing that I, went to the store to get.
My problem is I'll get told, hey, you have too many guns. You need to start getting rid of some. Be like, okay, you have a good point. I'll listen to you. I'll take like 5 guns to the gun shop, and I'll come home with 4 new ones. Be like, technically, I have less than I started with.
You called the herd. You did a good job.
Yeah.
And back when I worked at Dunham's, and a guy would be looking at stuff, be like, anything you want to check out? No, the wife says I have too many guns. I would instantly reply with, you can never have too many guns, just too many wives. Which always got a great laugh. Although if their wife was right there, they usually exited the counter pretty quickly afterwards. I mean, there was never a time a guy didn't laugh. So when he left with his wife there, well, he was done.
Mike McLuhan said, I went to buy a pair of boots at the local Rural King and walked out with a 1911. No luck on the boots, by the way.
Very nice. What kind of 1911, if we may ask? Sorry, as most people would know, that's where my little sweet spot of collecting is. And it's not any make or anything like that. I just like 1911s. Honestly, I want... from the lowest piece of crap 1911 you can find all the way up to high-end ones. I want to have everything in between, just to have a wide variety of them and compare and contrast and things like that. So yeah, 1911s are just a little sweet spot for me. That's
another one that I've always wanted since I was a kid, because it's an iconic handgun. It wasn't until, probably maybe a little more than a year ago that I finally shot a 1911. And then as soon as I shot it, I understood the appeal of the 1911.
What kind did you shoot?
I shot I think one was a Springfield, and one was a SIG.
So have you shot like a really inexpensive 1911 or a cheesy one?
Those were the only 2 that I've ever shot.
Oh, okay.
I really liked the SIG. The Springfield wasn't bad.
I want a llama.
1911s are one of those ones that I don't know. It's like a convertible. There's a lot of them at this point, so they're not all the same. Like shooting a cheap 1911 is a different experience than shooting a really nice, tight 1911.
Yep.
Two live moves out there. Movies.
I will say, it's hard to have a bad trigger on a 1911.
Right. I mean, it's going to be a decent working gun most of the time, I think, but like a GI trigger versus, I'm just thinking of I had a Thompson, which wasn't bad, but it was just not fancy. It wasn't all nice.
Yeah.
There was some slop and stuff. So it was a trigger, single action 1911 trigger, but compared to like a Nighthawk or something, like I've shot a Nighthawk before and they're just, I don't know, like moving a hot knife through butter versus,
yeah,
I don't know, just a butter pat that's margarine on a tat, a piece of paper. It's like, yeah, it's margarine, but it's just not the same experience as cutting that hot knife through real butter.
I would love to have a Thompson just because it's Thompson, because of the name.
A Thompson 1911, I mean?
Yeah. Well, I would love to have a Tommy gun too, but
The Thompson, an auto ordnance 1911 is like a $300 1911, but they're not like they're bad. There's just some take up and slot before you touch the brake, before. So it's just, it definitely is a difference. Sort of like shooting you've shot a fake 1911, that's, I was gonna say, a fake Thompson versus a real Thompson. Like there was some guns that are almost BB guns that were like inexpensive Thompson looking guns that were like made out of Zamek that are from 6 feet away. They look kind of like a Thompson, but they're no Thompson. They're almost like a blowback or something.
Mike McLuhan said he's up to 6 1911s, 2 TSOS, 2 Rock Islands, and 2 Kimbers.
It's an addiction.
Very
What's
nice.
his favorite?
Yes. Let's say I actually had to recheck out the TSOS because the first one I ever checked out, it about gave me a rash. It was so terrible. And I immediately after that wrote him off. And then I was talking to Gun Stomp the one night, and he's like, dude, you need to check him back out. He's like, whatever shoot he had gone to, he said he got to handle them and whatnot. And he's like, they're really nice. I was like, you're crazy. So next time I was in at Tamarack, I asked Mike, I was like, hey, you got any of those TSOS 1911s? And he handed me 2 different ones, and they felt amazing. I mean, I haven't gotten to shoot any of them yet, but just night and day difference. So like that very first one I handled could have just been that one that made it through quality control that never should have. But the other 2 that I handled, I was like, all right, these could be real deal. I was surprised.
Mike McLuhan also said he's in the market for a 38 Super 1911. Are you guys okay with the 38 Super? There seems to be a lot of people don't like them.
I'm in Tucson, so I'm used to seeing 38 Supers. I don't got any problem with them. I don't like having to buy ammo for them. I wouldn't want to have another caliber, but I get them. I understand them.
I like
As far as
just call them a fad, just because I can.
They're like,
as far as the platform for a 1911, 38 Super makes way more sense than 9mm. 9mm just wins because cost of ammo, but 38 Super is a better round.
yeah, it's a better round. It's a good
Yep.
round for 1911. It just happens to work with Mexico, so they're around. But
Mhm.
yeah, 9mm would have been where it's supposed to be. We'd see 38 Super. 1911 is way more common.
100%.
Is it supposed to be a 357, or am I crazy? Coming out of a 1911, it's not. It's a good round.
I don't know if it gets
I'm
up
not sure.
there, but it's way better than 9 or 38 special.
Yeah, I've never checked out the specs on a 38 Super.
I can look it up.
I know Paul Harrow really likes 38 Super.
Mhm.
Must be something to it.
Cool thing is the cartridge length is the same length as a 45, so you don't need any like weird ass magazines for the 1911.
Nice.
That's neat. I didn't realize they were the same length.
That's what 38 Super's for. It was made for 1911, right?
Mm-hmm.
So really, you could just do a barrel conversion. Theoretically, obviously, because
I don't know. I don't think I've seen too many people. I don't think I've ever seen something that was like, hey, turn your 1911 45 ACP into 38 Super.
well,
It's
yeah, I mean,
always
what would-
just been buy it, so I don't know. It sounds like you could, but I don't know.
Okay, so I'm looking at the numbers. With a 5-inch barrel, 1911, 38 Supers is about as good as a 357 mag out of a 4-inch barrel. Unless you're like doing plus P plus .357 mag, then it's definitely hotter. Yeah, they're about equivalent.
That's what I thought.
It's pretty cool.
Ca-
It's enough to pique my interest in it now.
Carolina ADC reviews.
It's just trying to find 38 super ammo. Like Tucson's
Oh,
not
yeah.
a great one, but the rest of the country where you're not right next to people buying it from Mexico, it's not as
I've never seen 38 Super in a shop around here.
Me neither. I would definitely have
haven't.
to go online.
I think
Yeah,
we're too
a
far
ton of
north.
Yeah, a ton of people come up from Mexico to buy it, so it'll be in the stores here. Not necessarily like as many flavors as any real caliber, but more than just a box of ammo usually.
So Baron,
Mhm.
you seem to like the M1 Garens.
Actually, yeah, good point. As far as collection, I have finished my M1 rifle collection. I have a copy from each manufacturer, all 4 of them. So I'm pretty happy with that.
Did you set out to do that, or is that just how it kind of ended up?
Well, until like 2-3 weeks ago, CMP wasn't offering each variation or company model. But my brain's not working. It wasn't possible to do it until recently, unless you like got in a time machine and went back 5 years and started. So it wasn't even in my brain like, ooh, that'd be cool to do, because I didn't think it was possible. I'd have to go on Gunbroker and pay $3-4 grand. But yeah, I got one from International Harvester, Harrington and Richardson's, Winchester, and one from Springfield.
That is also a gun that I would love to have, is a Garen, just again because it's iconic.
The prices are skyrocketing on those.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, you could get every World War II gun, not even a problem. You wouldn't even have to try hard. You could get, pretty much everything, really. But now you can't. I think now would be an accomplishment to get just a set of like a Springfield, a Garand, and a carbine. But
About
back in the day, you could do all that at one gun show for a couple $100.
Yeah, I've never even seen a 1903 at my locals. Never.
Really?
Yeah. Might just be my location. I don't know.
pretty sure Tamarack just had I think it was a Remington 1903. About a year ago, I was looking at it really hard, but the only way I was going to be interested in it was like if it really checked out, and it was looking like it was one of those ones that was just kind of thrown together from a bunch of extra parts post-war. So, but there's a shop here called Keystone Armory in Edinburgh, and I'd say 10, maybe 12 years ago, I would walk in there, and I bet half their inventory was Garand's. I was like, oh my gosh. But I was young and poor, and they were like $500. And
I'd
oh
kill
my
for
god,
that price.
every time I think about it, I'm just like, oh my god, if I would have just been smart enough to buy like 4 of those.
There's a college fund for the kids, right?
Yeah, that was $500 when other guns were like probably
$300.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, somewhere between 3 and 7. So it's not like, every other gun was $50 and they were 500. It's not like every other gun was 2,000. They were just like in there, right? So they weren't, unless you found a good deal or something, they weren't going to stand out at $500 like they compared to the 1,200 or 1,700 they cost today.
Yeah, Mosin was $80.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. So you'd be like,
that-
well, I could
and-
buy any gun for $500. I could buy almost anything in the store. Why would I buy a Garand?
And like I mean, I knew what the Grand was, so I mean, I always wanted one, but like I said, I was young and poor, and I was just getting into armed security and whatnot. So I was forking out a bunch of money for duty weapon, and getting all that rigged together, and the mental health background check BS, the whole 9 yards. So that was expensive. So having that extra money just to spend $500 on a grand, while I knew what it was and wanted one, it just wasn't feasible. But likewise, they had so many. It's not one of those things that you think is all of a sudden just going to dry up. Much like Mosins, you're like, oh, these things are selling for $80. You can find them everywhere. They're plentiful. Then all of a sudden they dry up, and you see Mosins going for $500 now. You're like, what in the world? Crap! I should have bought a whole friggin' case of those when I had the chance.
Mm-hmm.
Bjorn says he has a Colt 1911. It's pretty cool.
Nice.
So 45 ACP.
Mine's 10mm.
I have one of each.
So jealous. I again, about that 10 years ago range, had the chance to get a World War I Colt, and I wanted it in the worst way, but it was like $800. And again, young, yeah. And that was one of those things where, again, I knew what it was. I knew, $800, while a lot of money for a gun that you're really not ever going to shoot, especially at the age that I was at, things like that. But that's just something else that just was not in the cards for me. And now I'm just like, I would give a left testicle to be able to get a 1911 that saw theater, whether it be World War I or World War II. That'd be awesome.
I was looking at Mini 14s yesterday, looking really hard at their, I forget where it was. Again, it was like Grab a Gun or CNN, and whatever that one is. But one of them had Mini 14s in 458 SOCOM.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's from Ruger?
Must be custom.
I think it's somebody else, but I don't remember who.
And it's still a Ruger gun that they're converting, or is somebody else making that form factor?
I think it's converted from a Ruger.
So, I mean, to get one because you like the A-Team is one thing, or to get one, I guess there's some other legitimate reason, but then to get one because it's a good gun, or like because it's accurate, is that legit, or is that you're getting it because of some other reason?
It might have been one of the Wilson Combat ones.
Oh man, that just sounds expensive right off the top.
Little bit, it interests me a little bit because it's A-Team, a little bit because the time period, it's not an M14, but it's and friend of mine's dad had a couple. I never shot it, but I looked at them.
For me, I guess there's an allure for a Mini 14, just for that idea of that classic ranch gun where you can throw it in the back of a tractor, or people running around with their gators now and all that, and or the quad, whatever you need. It gets banged around, but at the end of the day, you pull it out, take care of what you need to take care of with it, go clean it up a little bit, just a little wipe down, and it's good to go for the next time that you got to go and do whatever you got to do with it.
Dude, that's exactly what it is. It's the 3-wheel quad of ranch guns.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it'll work. You might not like it compared to a 4-wheel quad or a motorcycle, but it does exist.
Like, I mean, you think about guns today, and everybody's like, "Oh, it shoots 1 MOA," and like with machining technologies, with barrel technologies, everything else that we have, anything that's being made today really should shoot 1 MOA or less. And the Mini 14 is a gun that still consistently shoots around 2 MOA. And there's some people that want to knock it because of that, but I'm like, you know what? For what it was really designed for and whatnot, I'm like, I could care less.
Yeah, I wouldn't care about that. I'm not using these to shoot precision rifle. I'm not hunting with any of them.
Exactly.
It's, there are some which I would like to be a little more accurate, but I don't care if it puts every round through the same hole. Even with my handguns, as long, I shoot. My goal is to have all the shots within this space, about 6 inch, because that'll be center mass, enough to all put them on center mass. The tighter your groups are, the better. But as long as I'm within that, I'm happy.
Well, that's the thing, Plus. So you figure at 100 yards, I mean, I don't know about up there in Washington. I imagine it's a lot like around here in PA. You're probably looking at best 100-yard shot on average, or I should say 100 yards or less on average for a shot on a deer. So if you were aiming at the center of your palm, then 2 inches either way, you're still going to hit your palm at 100 yards. That'd be no different than shooting at a deer heart. So even for hunting, Mini 14 would be a fine firearm.
Roy Munson brings up a point. The Mini 14 is still a thing because of assault weapon banned states like California.
True.
Which hopefully will not be a thing in the near future.
Speaking of Washington, we actually have a assault weapon ban up for I guess it's going to be up for vote here soon. They're still got it in committee, but
yeah,
it had grandfather clause, but it goes into effect immediately upon signing. So there's no 3-month implementation period.
That's the same they did with the
Illinois
magazine limit.
Well, the mag limit we had till July, and they passed it in January.
What was, because I know they shortened the time because it had to be done in a hurry because reasons. That's our state seems to like to do that, where everything is an emergency. It all has to be done now.
Well, it was such a good idea that you voted on it, so it must be an even better idea to do it quickly before you think about it.
So that's the way they got rid of the needing a supermajority to pass taxes, because it's an emergency, so we have to change the rules. So you only need a simple majority.
So worst case scenario, let's say Foss wanted to buy this M14 and 458 SOCOM. We got a 10-day waiting period, 10 business days.
Yeah, that's on top of the however long it takes your background check.
Yeah, so you could go down there Monday, buy this thing, start your process. They could pass this thing through both houses, or the House and the Senate, get it signed, and you can't get your gun because it just went into effect immediately upon the signing. That sucks.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
I feel like if you throttle people who are trying to buy guns, less violence.
Well, it's not the topic, so I don't want to get too far into it. But I'll just say that they don't seem to realize that every time the anti-gunners push these, there's pushback from both the gun community and from those who weren't in the gun community, and it creates
More resistance.
well, it more people buy guns.
Yep.
So the assault weapons ban, that is the reason that the AR is the most popular gun in the U.S. Because they took it away from everybody and said you can't have these. So people wanted them, and then once you could buy them, everybody started buying them. If they hadn't passed that, it might be different. It still might be hunting rifles and shotguns. And that, of course, that's all conjecture on my part.
That's maybe an interesting topic to have a conversation about, because there's more factors, but what started people's interest in the other factors is a good point. They wouldn't have said that universally across the country. A whole bunch of states would have probably never bought any. And then if you don't buy one, you don't realize, well, this one's pretty cool, but if it had this, it'd be a little bit better for that. And then before you know it, you have 6 of those things.
Yeah. Right, Baron?
Yeah. Well, like, as far as my gut feeling, I feel like we're playing musical chairs in Washington State, and the music is about to end, and you're going to be stuck in whatever chair you're right next to. So I am in the process of making sure I have everything I wanted, because I feel like there's a large possibility we're not going to be able to get anything fun for a while.
If it wasn't for the way they did the mag ban,
yeah,
I would not be too concerned. But shoving that through, even though there was so much opposition to it by the
we broke the record by 7 times.
Yeah, for the comment, people voting, people voicing their opinion during the before they voted, leaving comments for the
testimony,
hearings. Yeah, and all that was ignored. So that's the reason that some of this other stuff might be. But again, that wasn't tonight's topic, so I don't want to get too far off the weeds.
But yeah. My collection is currently well into the 3 digits. And man, if they ban all this shit and I'm just stuck with everything I have for the rest of my life, like worst case scenario, none of this gets overturned. That's a lot of money to be tied up.
Yeah. So we'll see how this shakes out. But the New York Rifle and Pistol decision, Supreme Court decision, is the major difference in today's times.
Yep.
Yes.
And to answer you Guns Barbecue, yes, we were talking about that before the.
Oh, okay.
But so while we have you talking barbecue, don't you have a small collection of shotguns?
Well, I guess you could. Overall, I've got a nice little collection of shotguns in general, but I don't really aim to collect pumps or anything. But I do have 3, well, technically 4 side-by-side double barrels. The one is a wall hanger, and I bought it for $50 at a gun show. It was in really, really, really rough shape. I do have the intention to try and get it to where it would be operable. With the shape it's in, I don't know if that's going to be possible. But side-by-side double barrels have always been near and dear to my heart, even though I only have 3 of them. But that's partly because I tend to buy other things where I'm like, oh, that could be banned one day. And side-by-side double barrels are one of those things that they're just not going to go after anytime soon, if ever. Likewise, while I don't mind modern-day production side-by-sides, I do tend to look for some older ones like the Fox double barrel that I just picked up a few months ago. A couple of years ago, I was able to find Montgomery Ward's double barrel 16 gauge, which that was pretty freaking awesome to find. And then the first double barrel I ever got was actually a Springfield double barrel. I'm not even sure of the model because it doesn't actually list the model on the gun. It actually just says patent 1915 on the receiver. But I actually got that from my uncle for painting his basement with latex paint because he was having some moisture issues in the basement. So he's like, you paint my basement and I'll give you a double barrel. I was like, done.
I had no idea Springfield made double barrels.
Yeah. And actually that wall hanger that I have is the exact same model and everything except 16 gauge.
So we're going to do a giveaway tonight. Put hashtag overnight. It's in the banner below. Hashtag overnight. We'll do that coming up here in, I don't know, 10 minutes or so.
So you're talking Springfield, the real Springfield in Massachusetts?
From it being from 1915, I would have to assume so.
Yep. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So as far as not being banned, that's just because you understand guns and the commonness of them. But if you're, all that it takes is one situation they exploit and say, you know that these double barrels are $50 and you often can just get one anywhere and all you got to do is take a hacksaw to it and now it's the thing from the Road Warrior and that's the most dangerous thing ever invented.
Yep.
You're seriously minutes away from seeing some kind of campaign against double barrel break opens because the whole reason we have a fear of short barrel shotguns is because of those movies and stuff. So, you know, the single barrel, double barrel, usually side by side, it's iconic. I mean, probably it's not been cool lately, except for Road Warrior or something. But you know what I mean? That was like for generations. That was the this person means business. They've broken the law by chopping this thing down, and you know this only has one use, and that's street sweeping. You know, like there's no legitimate use in some people's eyes of a shot-off shotgun. But anyway, I was just saying, like, it's, you know, one incident away, one, you know, Monsanto campaign away. Well, I guess she's gone now. So whoever the next person is, one campaign away from these are the scourge of the community now.
I would just like to again take credit for Shan retiring. I still feel like us reviewing her book made her. I mean, because obviously she watched that book review, and then she just realized the error of her ways and was like, you know what, I've just got to get out of this game. I can't keep lying to people. You're welcome, everybody.
That or what she was doing wasn't working and got pushed out.
True. And also, I mean, I did see the book that she sent to G, and she said she was really looking to CNG at SHOT Show 2023. So, I mean, it could have been some magic there, too.
It was magical.
Say hello to the goddamn bacon. Good evening.
So what about, are we still talking collection?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You call it a collection when there's, at least back in my day, somebody would get a revolver, a pistol, bolt action, you know, like some set, whatever it is, their set included. So for some people, like you were saying, like I need a gun for hunting and one for self-defense and one for Anyway, so is that still a collection when somebody's content with their, I don't know, like sort of like a set of golf clubs, right? Like you need a wedge. I don't know what the clubs are, but you know, you need the one, you need the other, you need the other one, you need at least 3 or 4. Some people are going to say you need 5 to have a complete set. Some people are going to say you need 7. Some people say I can do it with 3. So is that a
I would
collection or is that too practical?
I would still put it in the collection category, but I would probably call it a set, because that's one thing that I wanted was a lever gun to go with. Um, I was thinking about getting a 357 lever gun to go with my revolver, and then I got the 44, and that opened up the 44, and then I'm like, well, you can get them in 30-06, or I just found out they make them in 454 Casull. 4570 is another. It's an iconic round, and it's a big boom, and I like recoil. But yeah, I would still consider, you know, having a set like that as a collection.
And if you're a regular person who's not a, like I grew up around guns and stuff, so it's not like I didn't have a choice. I just never felt uncomfortable about having a bunch of guns around or whatever. It's, just like some people are going to have a bunch of cars in their yard and other people are going to have one car at a time. It's just the way people are. So let's say you're a regular person and you're either married or you've got a family or whatever, and you buy your first gun and now they're like, oh, that person's a gun owner, but you bought a shotgun or you bought like some specific gun for one task. And we all know that, like guns can do different things. So a shotgun and a revolver are different guns. So you bought that revolver, you're a gun owner. Now you're like, you know what? I'm not afraid of guns anymore. I like them and they're interesting, but a lot of people shoot shotguns and I'm going to go get into shooting skeet. So I'm buying that over under shotgun. Or worse yet, you buy a side by side and go, oh, they're not the same as an over under. I'm buying an over under now. And you don't sell the side by side for whatever reason. You paid $50 for it and it's just not
Just
worth
turn it
selling
sideways.
60. Well, you know what I'm saying? But, so now you've got a gun or two. And some people are going to go, that person's a gun nut. That person has a gun collection. They buy guns just because they're obsessed with violence. You know what I mean? Like you're in a realm now. And I guess I'm just reemphasizing that idea that like, is that still a collection when you just bought a couple now? But to a lot of people in the world, you're a gun collector, even though you just bought 2 guns.
That's another one that I do want is a nice over and under.
I'm just old enough that I had all these guns. Like I really wanted a side by side, and then I wanted an over and under, and I had it, and I just quit shooting that way. So it was not a big deal to sell it, move it along to somebody who was going to use it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't grow up with guns or around guns. I didn't shoot my first gun until early 20s, 21, 22. Went out with a friend, and I can't remember which friend. It was around the same time, because it was either my friend took me out with, he was working security and he had I think it was a Smith & Wesson 357, like a 686, something like that. Or another friend that his Beretta, it was one of those two, or no, sorry. Very first was a 22. It was a 1022 in high school. But then, after that, it wasn't, not till the 20s. And then I was gonna get one. I wanted that Ruger P90, and I was gonna get one. Got a concealed weapons permit, and ended up never buying a handgun. And I bought my first gun, about 5 years ago? 4 or 5 years ago. I was still, I would look at them in catalogs. You used to be able to get store I worked at the, in the 90s, they had a catalog where you could go through and they'd have like Tommy guns and Calicos, all in 22. But, a whole bunch of different models, but just in a 22. which is, I leaf through that all the time and look at the different guns and stuff. And I've, as a kid, had different books on military equipment and arms and guns and stuff, but just never, family didn't have guns, and I just didn't grow up with them.
Think about like when we were kids, like you'd go, okay, I want to learn about guns from the military or something. So you'd have to go buy a book or something about guns from the military, or rent some, get it one at the library or whatever, if they had something like that, because libraries didn't have every topic they didn't like or whatever. But whatever it was, you would have to go get information about that. Now with the internet, you can be like, I just want to know anything. Now you know it, right? Or I'm just curious about this, and here's all the different things that are adjacent to it, just right there for you. That's got to be an element to it where, back in the day, if you wanted to be into something like Civil War guns, you bought a book on Civil War guns. It wasn't going to talk about semi-automatic 1911s, period, right? It wasn't going to come up. Now you can be looking at somebody's YouTube channel that's all into Civil War guns, and they might go, oh, here's the new 1911 I bought. Now, from the same source, you're now getting different info, and it was just not really a thing. It was really more segmented or whatever back in the day.
Well, and that's another thing. Like, just hearing Foss say, growing up, guns weren't a thing. I cannot wrap my head around that, because as far back as I can remember, guns were a part of life. And to think, as like, again, trying to wrap my head around it, but then I was like, well, maybe that's how you end up becoming a baseball encyclopedia, is you don't have guns around, because everything I could ever think of, even being at school, you're talking to your buddies, oh, we're going deer hunting this weekend, what are you taking, this, that, the other thing. Guns were always a thing. And the other thing was, like, you never heard anybody say, oh yeah, we don't have guns or anything like that. It's just so alien to me. It's it kind of fascinates me, and then the other part of me is like, I feel so bad for you.
M. Gabriel's asking what's the best chambering for a beaver. I would say it really depends on what your beaver's made out of. Can it handle the higher pressure rounds?
So you got to get through a bunch of bush to get to the beaver.
So if you haven't put hashtag overnight yet and you want to be entered in the drawing, put hashtag overnight there real quick, because we're going to do the drawing here. There's 9 entries, so you've got pretty good chances.
Although if they were being serious about that beaver question, I would just say a 22, because everybody that I've ever known that is hunting beaver, they normally have them trapped already. So it's just a matter of dispatching it at that point, which 22 to the noggin does it every time.
If you win, we will submit you to a pronunciation test live on air.
Sweet.
So while we'll give it just a couple minutes, or just a minute or so to...
What about collecting a gun in each caliber?
I thought about it.
I needed a 22. I wanted a 25. I got a 32. I wanted a 38. Is that a thing?
I kind of did that with 1911s.
Oh, you can get into a realm and then goes on a caliber spread. That could be interesting in a lot of guns.
For me, it's more the form. First, in ARs, yes, I've kind of done that a little bit, diversified in calibers. But for like handguns, it's more just, 1911 or, like I was saying, the P90 or the P30 in specific calibers, rather than having those in all the calibers.
It takes us dedication to get, I don't know, something like when 1911 makes a little bit more sense, but like some guns, like just a Glock or something, or a SIG or something in every caliber, because it's kind of pointless when you start thinking of like gap and some of the calibers that might exist, but you don't shoot them.
Yeah,
and you're just doing it to complete some collection theoretically or something.
So
But
let me
something
play
like
this, and then we'll
something
do
like
the draw.
AR-15s, you couldn't even. Is it even at one point you could easily have every caliber of AR-15, but now is it even possible to list all the calibers that AR-15s come in? Let
There's a
alone
lot.
own one in each caliber?
Uh,
I feel like once you
Sorry, barbecue.
That's pretty good.
No, that's fine. I say I just saw a quick little opening there. I wasn't sure if you're getting ready to hit that button or not. I was just gonna say though, I think once you listed them all as soon as you got the list completed, somebody would come out with a Wildcat caliber, and you'd be like, "Nope, don't got them all."
For the AR, yeah, exactly. Because all it has
Yep.
to do is kind of fit in a magazine a little bit, and then it can make a gun for it.
Well, and it's with the AR, you just change out your upper, or even just change your barrel, and then you have a new, you can use a different caliber. So let's do our drawing. Good luck to everybody. And the winner is G-Webs.
Sweet.
Congratulations, G-Webs.
Congrats.
What are we playing for today?
Nice.
I don't know. I hadn't decided yet, but you're going to get something.
As long as I get what's coming to me.
You will, and more.
Watch out for the beaver.
I haven't won nothing in a while, so thanks.
So congratulations, Gun Websites. And this was that we did the drawing because this is actually the 2-year anniversary for the overnight. 2 years.
Oh snap!
It does not.
How did
feel
that
like
happen?
it's been 2 years. I have no idea. Yeah.
You tell me I've been at coma for 2 years. When do I wake up?
Oh, it's all a bad dream.
Yep.
Started out as basically to, the first chat I did was so I could learn more about the chat, how the process works. Because, when you watch a chat, it's different than when you're on a chat, on somebody's chat participating. And that's different than running your own chat. I wanted to learn what it was like to run your own chat and see how that process worked. And then use that also. I was kind of making a response to somebody. And then 2 years later, here we are still doing it.
Should we
Amazing.
touch on the original topic?
Nah,
Because I
it's
feel like we definitely proved that that wasn't the case.
yeah, what the hell was
The question was, did you miss out on the 2A train?
Oh,
I
yeah.
think clearly people did not miss out on it. It's still going strong, depending on what state you're living in.
Yeah.
This is a great time for 2A.
I
Yeah,
think
it was
even
somebody.
sorry, boss.
It was somebody that said if you are not already a part of the 2A movement, and this is kind of generalizing because it was 2 years ago.
That's the
But,
best way to do it, is generalize.
That we don't want you. They don't want them. It's too late. You missed it. And
Yeah,
I
fuck that
disagreed.
guy.
I disagreed with that.
Uh-huh.
I say the more the merrier. Yeah, if there's always going to be new people, bring them in, welcome them, get them situated and a part of the movement.
Mm-hmm.
What were you saying, barbecue?
I was just gonna say, I think obviously not being in one of those quote unquote battleground states, I am just kind of at the zoo looking through the glass, like, oh, it looks really nice in that habitat over there for that gorilla. I bet they're having a great time, even though, they're in that terrible enclosure. But at the same time, I'm like, you know what? That gorilla's getting to wake up every day and go and frolic and play, and they're being fed and everything. They probably still have a pretty good life. While you guys do have to deal with some just absolutely heinous infringements, overall, whether it be a seasoned firearms owner or complete newbie, I think this is a great time to be a firearms owner, especially with court battles that are happening, like the NYSERPA decision and things like that. I think this is a great time for people to be coming into the mix and experience two-way culture.
Yeah, I am looking forward to see what shakes out in the next Supreme Court session. I think there will be some good rulings coming, but you never know. But with the precedent already set, I think there will be some favorable rulings for the Second Amendment. And you have to remember that when you're dealing with the Supreme Court, people will see that they didn't take this case or that case. Sometimes it has to do with the process. Not everything happened in the process that the Supreme Court wants to see. They want to see it, like the one with the New York, where they tried to kind of jump the queue and get the Supreme Court to take it before the appeals court took it, and the Supreme Court denied it, said they weren't going to hear it, because they tend to like to see it go through all the process completely before it gets to them. Or sometimes it's just there are so many cases they get that you never hear about, that they can't take them all. So they have to kind of pick and choose what they're gonna hear.
Well, that's the other thing, though. Like with the CCIA case, where they appealed to the Supreme Court, mainly because the TRO was put on the CCIA by I think, judge in Buffalo, and the Second Circuit put a stay on that. So they're like, yeah, no, that's not happening. But they never gave a reason either. Just like, no, we're putting a stay on it. At which point, the GOA and defendants appealed to the Supreme Court to lift that stay, which, the Supreme Court was like, no, we're going to let it play through the process. But with that, the Supreme Court just, kind of slapped down the Second Circuit, said, hey, you got 5 or 6 cases sitting in queue for, Second Amendment stuff that you guys need to get to, and you need to do it promptly or else we're going to. So, at the same time, it kind of intrigues me. What if that was not done? Would the Supreme Court be paying as close attention to the Second Circuit as they are now, or were they already doing so? And
yeah, and they don't have to give reasons for what they do. So
yep,
they might take something or not take something, and they don't have to tell you anything. But AAF, American Ammo and Firearms, is out there. So was Jay Leaf. Good morning. This tonight was just kind of like I said, couldn't think of any topics, and Baron's like, gun collecting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sure.
This was a very fun topic.
I do have a question.
Yes.
How many is too many, or is there no amount?
When it comes to wives, I think one
One
is too many.
I would say too many is when it's a detriment to your ability to
Meet
support
your
yourself.
responsibilities.
Yeah.
Yep.
Outside
Who
of
do we
that,
have on the panel right now? Is that DM Fuss or New York Outcast?
outside of that, do what you want. As
That
long
sounds
as-
very familiar. I think I've heard that recently. If you can't meet your responsibilities, maybe you have too many guns.
I don't know. I have said that in the past when that's come up.
I don't know. We're talking about a fairly unique investment. So, name a gun that you can own, or name. All right. So first off, maybe jewelry, but you can own firearms, put them in a drawer, unless it's getting rusty or something. It's gonna essentially retain its value, if not go up in value, depending on which one it is, right?
I mean, buying new ones.
Well, that's the
Well,
thing. You
even-
can strategically buy things that are just good deals. Like there's investment all over the place in guns. You can invest in, like, think of how many guns now that you got 2020 hindsight that were pistols that were insignificant, and all of a sudden now they're rare, and now they got some appeal. And you can think like almost every realm of guns you can find. So all I'm saying is, you can definitely pick a gun that has no value and you bought it and you just own it for some reason and it's wasting everybody's time. But most firearms are at least retaining their value, if not over time, becoming an investment. So that's all I'm saying. Like, unlike a set of golf clubs or a hang glider or something that's going to deteriorate, its materials are going to be useless at some point and only get built, good as a collector's item. Like guns take a long time before they're useless. Like
that was something I was gonna ask the panel, because that's something that Barbecue and I have kind of talked about before in after chats and whatnot, is firearms as investments. Do they make
a collection of guns is an investment? That's, I guess, what I'm trying to say. Like, unless you really abuse it or just hand pick the worst investments, like any collection of 3 guns is going to go up in value.
Yeah, you got a point.
Well, let's say we might have to watch saying that you're buying for investment or anything like that now, because pretty sure under the redefinition of firearms and receivers, that would put you as dealer because you're buying for profit.
Yeah, unlicensed dealer is a thing that Clinton brought up. Our unlicensed sellers is from 2016, and it's a tactic and an attack they used and didn't go very far. It was with the Charleston loophole era.
Mhm.
Yes, new stuff. So yeah, that's definitely another reason that the 1968 shouldn't exist, because it creates an arbitrary, there's no actual number, but there is this suggestion that at some point you're making a living off of firearms. So you get a bunch of firearms that you buy when you're young, and let's say you bought 3 Mosins when you were 18, and now you're 27 and you're buying a car or something, and those Mosins are worth hundreds of dollars and they cost you dozens of dollars, right? Like, according to some perspectives, you're now somehow unscrupulous because of that. Now, if you bought some jewelry or some jeans or sunglasses or something, and just something you didn't think about when you were young, skateboards or something, and then years later they're popular again, or there's some reason that these ones from back in the day are worth something, and you didn't realize that now you're sitting on $1,000 and you spent dozens. No other property is scrutinized. Like, oh, you're making money on it. Like, what's wrong with you? Are you somehow fixated on violence? Like, that part of it, I think that's an important. I mean, there's lots of important angles, but that's an angle that if we leave it there, they're going to eventually go after it again. Same with the shotguns. I mean, I'm picking scabs here, but I'm picking at strings that are not raveled yet. But anything that we've got that's a string that's not raveled is potentially something they're going to go after, right? So I think there is an aspect of championing the fact that, yeah, anybody can be a gun owner. And that's the coolest part. Like, somebody can, like the lady with the Sturmgewehr, somebody could just have grandpa's shotgun, but or better yet, some family gun. You know, oh, that's some old flintlock gun. Turns out that it's a Civil War artifact, right? Some antique that has significance to the town or something, or some town where the family comes from, or some battle or something. And back in the day, oh yeah, you just had some gun. Well, except now, you know, we know from, you know, research that we're missing these 3 guns out of a collection of 5 that won this battle, and you got one in your closet. So somebody could go from, oh, I just got grandpa's shotgun in the closet, or I don't know whose uncle's that was, to, oh, I just paid off the car, or I just put somebody through college. On that out there.
Yeah.
My problem is once I collect something, I don't let go of it.
It took me a long time to get past that. But you know what? I think as soon as you get old enough and realize that you can't take it with you, keeping a collection around, if like I was super rich and I could like, oh, my collection's going to go to some blah, blah, blah. Okay. Or if I had a bunch of kids and I'm like, oh yeah, I don't care. My collection's going to go to my 3 kids. But when that doesn't exist, then it's real easy to get rid of stuff.
You just need to have them dig a bigger hole when they bury you.
Like a Viking style. You know?
I was just gonna say, just like get a decent sized boat, have them send you off, shoot a flaming arrow into the boat.
Oh, well,
So I need more guns. That's what I've learned.
Yeah.
Okay.
As long as it's not keeping you from, you know, being responsible.
I was never responsible anyway.
good evening, good morning, DJ.
Winnie the Pooh.
Hey, how you doing?
You are tardy.
That show's still going, right?
Yeah, we're kind of winding down.
Second anniversary.
right on.
And you pull a Guns and Barbecue and show up right when we're gonna end it.
I know you were out there a little bit earlier. Was there anything you wanted to add to anything we've talked about?
Not that I couldn't cover in the back chat. Maybe another time to talk about collecting would be a good time.
Oh,
Sorry to be tardy to the party.
just one thing though. DJ has a vast collection of broken firearms.
Did you buy them broken?
I what?
I got a ton
We
of
just-
broken ones. I probably have more broken ones than a lot of people have guns, so I don't even think about them sometimes.
Well, I guess when you have a Ring of Fire collection, you are in a pretty constant state of repair. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
No, but I mean, if I see a gun for $20, I'll buy it. I've done that a million times. I got revolver frames and shotguns and garbage that I'm like, well, maybe I'll make an art piece out of it, or maybe I'll do nothing. It costs $20. I'm going to buy that. You know, it's just enough of a chunk of a gun that now I can say, oh yeah, I've had a whatever 12, 16 gauge side by side. Doesn't work. It's broken. It cost me $30, but I got it.
And say, which could move into an interesting conversation piece of when does it go from collecting to hoarding? Because I think at some point, if you just got a bunch of broken guns laying around that you have no ability to fix or anything, you're just like, well, it was $10 or that was $20, which I understand, you know, doing that. But if it's just something that's going to sit because you don't have any intent to do anything with it, it's just like, oh, that's another piece that I picked up.
That was something that I thought about when I was thinking about doing this as a topic, because there's a guy on one of the Discords that collects knives, and he'll post pictures, and his knives are just in piles. You know, you can't see the individual knives, you know, other than the top of the handles, and yeah, he's collecting, but I would not get any enjoyment out of looking at a pile of hoarded things. You know, I've got this stuff I have is displayed or put or stored in a manner where you can go to where it is and then easily look at what you want, rather than a big pile of stuff in the corner.
I feel
Someone
like we're kind of
compared me to
bred to have things sectioned off and, you know, alphabetized or color coded or whatever. And I've definitely run into some of those collections that are perhaps a bit more haphazard. But as far as hoards go, I love when somebody has a hoard of gun stuff. I've been in so many Quonsets here in Nebraska, from farmers to dealers, home FFLs that have just stacks and stacks, barrels of, here's a barrel of barrels. Here's a barrel of stocks of just this particular firearm. Pile of revolvers that are all missing cylinders. That is some of the best, like, digging and scrounging.
What
I love getting into that.
I do like foraging through, spaces. I would make up a reason to go to the wrecking yard. I would just tell them, oh, I'm looking for this or looking for that. And then I'd spend an hour just digging through the cars and stuff. I've been to a hoarder's house. When you walk in the door, there's just a pile of stuff half blocking the door, and having a good root around in there and looking at, whatever, the old stuff that you find. I love doing that. But for like any of my collections, there would be no enjoyment. It would just be,
when you turn from collecting to hoarding, there's a mental attachment there that blocks people from getting rid of anything.
Yeah,
I would say that's the line is where just hoarding stuff is what's the word, like the itch and the scratch of I need to find the stuff and seek it out. I think collectors is more like I'm getting it for some reason, like to look at them or to have the complete set for research or to be able to whatever display, you know what I mean? Like they're getting some kind of enjoyment out of the collection, where the hoarder collects to feed the collecting hunger, right? So
I think that's more me.
I might be hoarding 1911's son of a gun.
That's a problem though, because like DJ said, that creates a resource. And if we didn't have people hoard, I don't know, I'm gonna pick like back in the day, the United States is a bunch of different colonies coming from different countries, and those people got together and went, oh, your gun is a big bore, and other people were like, oh, your gun has a long barrel. So the gunsmiths, the first gunsmiths in the United States, were like, let's take your chocolate and your peanut butter and make better new things, right? And that's what ended up winning the American Revolution. So those first guns, if people wouldn't have hoarded those, they were each almost separate. This was before interchangeable parts and before any kind of standardization, any kind of standard military, anything. So if people wouldn't have hoarded those unique specimens, we wouldn't even have that. And think about Bannerman. Some people would say he was hoarding. He was doing it for a commercial reason, but all the different scale versions of somebody who just realizes they can, I don't know, like collect this, or they can obtain these, and it's possible to do so. If they didn't do so in warehouse things once in a while, we wouldn't have the variety of stuff we got today, right? It would be some kind of robot society where once something is no longer of value, it gets recycled into the next, disposable item that gets recycled into the next disposable item. We keep our history because of hoarders to some extent, and the people who are fancy enough to keep a specimen collection.
Yeah,
and I feel like I've seen I was going to say real quickly, Barbecue, that I believe that I've seen, like hundreds of examples of like semi-rare or obscure guns at gun shows before, and I've seen an equal number in folks' hoards, like I described before.
Yeah, I was going to say, because with what DJ originally described, like somebody that's got, just a barrel of, let's say, Mauser stocks or barrels or, something like that. If it's segmented to like one particular thing, like, oh, this is just all Mauser barrels or all Mauser stocks or you name it. I have trouble calling that a hoard as much as a collection. Now, again, you can move into, is it hoarding or not? When especially if you're like, hey, you're supposed to sell some stuff, so I want to buy one of these barrels and I want to buy one of these stocks, and you're like, no, I can't let that go. I'm just gonna break it up. But they're all the same. Like you talked about how you used to have quite possibly the largest collection of AK-47 bayonets.
Have a good night, Faride.
So with that, I'm sure some people would have said that you're hoarding those if you weren't willing to sell them. But at the same time, getting rid of one of those, that would have broke up the collection that you had. But if you had, 100 of just one type of bayonet, that goes from collecting to hoarding, I think.
See, I don't know. I think it's also like, I was constantly going through them. I was, I got the website. I've got, I'm doing things to share them and to take pictures and like, have conversations, evolve the knowledge base and stuff like, oh, we need to know about the Germans. Let me add all my pictures to the mix. So that's something where hoarding, I think you obtain the thing. You might put it somewhere. I mean, hoarders are all different, I guess, but some of them, they just obtain it and that's it. And some of them, I'm sure they obtain it and then it goes into this drawer because that's where those things go or whatever, right? And I think that's the thing. If like you participate or if you get enjoyment out of it or if it's more than just the obtaining of it, I don't know. I don't know what a Scrooge McDuck of guns, like somebody who's just like, oh, I got what good, they're not looking for shotguns or revolvers. They're just looking for good deals. Like as an investment, like I could invest in jewelry, I could invest in coins, or I could buy guns. And if I just go to gun shows and buy everything that's a good deal, take it home and put it in a drawer, I'll have, a better investment portfolio when I'm old than somebody who invested in coins or stamps or something. Like, is that a hoarder or is that just somebody who's got an interesting investment strategy? Because they're not going to get any enjoyment other than this one should be worth more when I sell it.
I don't know. I don't know where that dividing line is because there's I've watched there's been a couple hoarder TV shows that deal with hoarders, and I watched there have been episodes where guys that would collect scrap as investment for the future, but a couple of the episodes that I saw, the market had crashed, so their scrap wasn't worth scrap. And then they couldn't give it up. So I don't want a big part of the hardcore hoarders is it's kind of a mental illness. But where is it you really like it and you have to have it?
I think that you point out, you make a good point there. The mental health component. It's to me, having a hoard isn't a bad thing. Hoarding, the activity though, can be, and I think that where the line is for me is when it reduces significantly quality of life. I mean, you can want to hoard to the point where you go broke. You may want to hoard to the point where you can no longer live in your house. And when those things start to happen, I think that's where the break comes, where the things become more important than the ability to maintain health. I'll leave it at that, because quality of life is going to be different for different people, and what's going to be acceptable is going to be different. And I've definitely run into folks where they'll hold on to things when the market has gone away because they expect it to come back again. And when it starts
DJ. I agree with you that if you have more than one 9mm, that's hoarding and it's detrimental, not just yourself and your health, but society in general. So that's definitely a warning sign.
Yeah,
I am guilty.
I'll agree with you. Because like the example of the guys with the stuff in the barrels, stocks or barrels in a barrel. They just might. That's just the way it could be they just organize. They don't keep them neatly on a shelf. To them, they're fine just in the barrel.
Well, we all know what Mosins. We all know the story of Mosins. So the Cold War, the World War I, they made Mosins. World War II, they had these Mosins. They were still useful. Cold War, they kept all the Mosins knowing that they're useful. Well, that isn't a new thing. Like I would just describe the guns from the Revolution to the Civil War. Well, think of the Civil War guns. There was like a ton of guns when I was a kid from the Civil War that no one paid any attention to. If you think of like the most amazing assortment of poker guns you've ever seen, those kind of guns were the Mosin Nagant revolvers of when I was a little kid. Like those guns were everywhere and they were very inexpensive unless they were pristine or something or super unique. So people who are in the community or just in the realm have seen waves of like that kind of thing where guns were inexpensive and then unobtainably expensive. So you're talking about having a barrel of barrels. I've seen that so many times because at World War II, these guns would come back to be reconditioned at the factory, and they'd be taken apart. So the barrel band would come off, the barrel would come off, the front sight would come off. They'd be put into bins of all these different parts, and then the parts would be salvaged or harvested into new guns, right, as they were put together. Well, at the end of the war, all that stuff got sold. At the end of the war, there was companies taking and sporterizing, this and, the bolt action this into a hunting rifle. And then 50 years later, Savage came along and there was no need to keep doing that. So the concept of a barrel of parts, especially of Cold War, World War I and II guns, that's nothing. So when somebody who's seen the pattern of like inexpensive guns just parking on them for years, decades, and then putting their kids through college with them, I don't think that was a hard sell at all. I think a ton of people saw that potential. And when they went to a gun show and saw, oh, I can buy all these Enfield parts for $50 because this gun shop doesn't want them anymore, and all I got to do is put them in the garage and the kid will go through college with these parts potentially. And if they don't, then I can just sell the parts as metal scrap, and that's probably going to be worth more than $60. That's, I think, why you see these barrels of barrels and these, stacks of stocks and stuff that some people are like, what, they just don't care about these guns. They've got so many of them. They're just in piles, but they may have bought them in piles because we're talking about end of world wars worth of inventories. There was just a lot of these guns. Same thing with like military pistols or law enforcement, handguns that got replaced by Glocks. People saw no value in the old guns. So there's just, sometimes a back room of a gun shop would have dozens and dozens of a revolver, and they just saw nobody was buying them. So there was no reason to throw them away. They essentially hoarded them.
And with a lot of these fellas, we have, if nothing else, we have an abundance of space. We have tons of land here. So, a Quonset here or somebody, like an outbuilding here, there. These guys, a lot of them, they have acreages. They can put up a quick building if they want to, a lean-to if they just need to get from one farm sale to the next. And that's another thing, because there is such a rich auction culture, where it is on site rather than in an auction house like it is most times in an urban setting outside of household auctions. You can stand there, they'll have 3 rings going. They'll have household goods. You guys, I don't need to break it down for you, but you can walk away from some of those sales if you just hang out with tons of stuff for less than, say, the scrap price. And so you will see collections where it's just, piles of bicycles, because every sale, that guy knows that at the end, nobody wants the bicycles. He offers $5 on a lot. Every farm has a dozen bicycles in a shed somewhere, kind of thing, or hanging up in a barn. And they don't even know, they may be able to come to find out, obviously, but they don't even really care if they just got like the rarest Schwinn in the world in relatively decent condition. They're just there to throw it on a pile. And I've seen generations, and I'll pass it back to you guys. I've seen generations now have to deal with that and the largesse. And it is at the point where Foss was making reference earlier, where the price just doesn't pay them to remove the things from the property anymore. So you have these huge piles of rust. Back to you.
Well, so DJ, since you were talking,
Yes,
plug
sir.
something.
I'd like to. Several things. On Saturdays, earlier this evening was a Saturday, and earlier this evening on the A Great Start Shooting School channel, there's a discussion, a light and lively one that ran a little bit longer than usual, about suicide and mental health awareness. Check that out. Saturdays, I'll drop the link in the text chat to that channel. Also, check out the Costly Conversations podcast channel. Good stuff going there. I keep trying to sell it. Somebody needs to buy. And until I see everybody again, be safe, have fun, carry your guns, and raw.
Barbecue. Anything you want to plug?
So first, I'd like to say, Terry, I'm using your government name. I hope you're sitting down. This is an intervention. We need to talk about your hoarding of guitars when we go off air. But no,
Okay.
seriously. I'm going to kind of go with a serious plug here tonight. be sure to expand your knowledge base. Tonight I talked about my small collection. I say small collection. I know other people would hear me having 9 on the verge of 10, 19, 11s being like, holy cow, that's amazing. But I was talking about my small collection of 1911s, and I remember when I was younger, I never had an interest in 1911s. It wasn't until I went to gunsmith school, and we had a whole section just on 1911s, and I learned more about the firearm, things like that, that really made me pique my interest in those. And now it's turned into 9 of them, and it's going to be many more by the time I croak. So always be expanding your knowledge base on firearms, things like that. You never know what it could lead to. Thanks for the invite.
Well, thanks for showing up. G-Webs, anything you want to plug?
Really, thanks for the link. Thanks for hosting.
So, give me just a second. Hopefully I got this one right. There's a link for gearwebsites.com. Place to get 2A related stickers, patches, books, posters, you name it. There's consulting services, 3D design, 3D printing. If you need it done, he can probably do it for you. Gearwebsites.com. Baron, anything you want to plug?
Take care of your health. Have a good one. Here's to 2 more years.
I just want to say thank you to everybody who's been with us for 2 years. It's been crazy and it's fun. It's incredibly fun to do. Being able to talk to the people that come on the panel and being able to chat with those out in the live chat. It's fun. And I've learned a lot by especially doing the overnight. The topics that we talk about, and then I go and research them. I've learned quite a bit. So hopefully everybody out there has gotten something out of it. And appreciate everybody. If you watch this in replay, leave a comment. Anything we talked about, you agree with, disagree with, think that we left out, let me know. I always read the comments. Let me really quickly drop that. And then, so other than that, I hope everybody has a good rest of the night and a good tomorrow.
You still here? It's over. Go home.